Drink your milk, we tell our children, and you'll grow up to be big and strong. But is that as true today as it was when we were growing up? Just ask Jane Akre and Steve Wilson. In 1996, this husband and wife reporting team at Tampa Bay, Florida's WTVT, now a Fox-owned television station, began investigating the use of a new artificial hormone.
rBGH stands for recombinant bovine growth hormone. It is a genetically engineered drug. It's made by the Monsanto chemical company, and it's injected into dairy cows every 2 weeks so that they give more milk.
But the problem is, despite what Monsanto says, it changes the milk that comes out of the cow. And those changes, according to many scientists around the world, increase your risk of breast, colon, prostate cancer.
How many Florida dairy cows are being injected with the synthetic hormone?
Jane Akre never got to answer that question on WTVT. After months of meticulous research, reporting, and fact-checking, Akre and Wilson's report was ready to roll. Then, 3 days before the broadcast was due to air, a fax arrived from the company that invented rBGH.
They wrote, some of the points clearly contain the elements of defamatory statements, which, if repeated, could lead to serious damage to Monsanto and dire consequences for Fox News.
Instead of standing behind its Emmy-winning team, the station yielded to Monsanto. The report was dropped from the schedule.
The general manager came up with this plan of buying us out. And he called us up to his office and sat us down, and it was a nice six-figure offer.
And we said, we didn't get into the news business to hush up the news. We got in the business to cover the news, not cover it up.
Just before Christmas 1997, Fox fired them. So what was in that original four-part report Monsanto thought could be so damaging?
Posilac is the single most tested new product in history.
Consumption of this milk poses risks of breast and colon cancer.
In 1993, the Food and Drug Administration approved Monsanto's rBGH, the first genetically engineered veterinary drug in U.S. history. The next year, it hit the shelves with the upbeat brand name Posilac.
On the label that comes with Posilac, there are 21 side effects for the cow, and they include everything from lameness and reproductive disorders, an udder infection called mastitis, things of that nature that can kill the cow.
A number of dairy farmers told Akre that after injecting their cows with Posilac, they lost up to 70% of their herds. Many went out of business altogether. Monsanto is a multinational drug and chemical corporation with annual sales of $5.5 billion. They are not strangers to product safety concerns.
They created a lot of things that are probably living in our bodies forever. For example, PCBs, dioxin, NutraSweet.
And Agent Orange, I mean, it just goes on and on. I mean, if it wasn't so alarming, it would almost be funny to hear this company say, oh, you don't have to worry.
This is not something that knowledgeable people have concerns about.
The more Akre and Wilson learned about rBGH, the more they realized this was not just another story of a corporation elevating profit above public safety.
Because of the potential human health and animal health problems with rBGH, Canada, the European Union, and countries across the globe have banned this product, but the FDA here is not.
Akre and Wilson could not sit by while such an environmental health risk went unreported.
If our federal regulators aren't watching out for us, our news people aren't watching out for us, who is?
They have posted their story on the internet.
The story's been seen around the world. I mean, people dial into our website regularly. They ask us to come speak. I mean, this has become a much bigger issue and much more well-known than it would have been if it ran on the 6 o'clock news in little old Tampa, Florida.
As the story behind the story grew, Fox learned it had not heard the last from its former star reporters.
We were fired specifically, we alleged, because we threatened to go to the Federal Communications Commission and blow the whistle.
In August 2000, a jury determined that Fox had tried to pressure the team to broadcast a false, distorted, and slanted news story.
And that was the basis of our whistleblower lawsuit, and we won that whistleblower lawsuit.
They awarded Jane Akre $425,000. The final amount of the judgment is pending an aggressive appeal by Fox lawyers.
We tell our children to consume dairy products, but they can't be careful consumers. They depend on us to learn the facts for them. And in this case, as a consumer, you couldn't learn the facts. And that's Monsanto's MO, and they'd like to keep it that way.
You know, nothing ever changes. No issues are ever addressed until people learn the facts. And in this case, that's all we were trying to do. And that's all journalism used to be about.
For outstanding environmental achievement in North America, the 2001 Goldman Environmental Prize is awarded jointly to Steve Wilson and Jane Akre of Palm Harbor, Florida, United States of America.
Wow. We want to thank the Goldman family for being so enlightened and for being the good-hearted people that they are. This award came to us at an amazing time. We were down and out for what we thought was really a simple act. I suppose we're here as proof that the truth can set you free. Set you free of your home, of your jobs, of your friends. So for the Goldmans to call us, we knew that they recognized that it really isn't supposed to happen that way. And for that validation, we are eternally grateful. I'm also honored. We are also honored to be among these other winners who have faced oppression, threats, detainment for their simple act of being stewards of the environment. Just like the public water supply that we saw in the last story, or the air we breathe, the public airwaves belong to every single one of you here. It is a precious commodity, and in exchange for the right to use those airwaves, free of charge, by the way, broadcasters are supposed to give back to the public in the form of honest news reporting and information. But like the water supply in Bolivia, increasingly our public airwaves are being privatized to benefit owners and sometimes at the expense of the public. It has been said that corporate greed has accomplished what totalitarian governments do so well: silence a free press. And I ask you, do you want reporting to be filtered by fear or by favor? If not, demand that broadcasters in your area be accountable to you, the public, who own the public commodity over which they make their private fortunes. The Goldman Prize recognizes not just us, but journalists who believe in a public's right to know about what they are consuming and what they are feeding to their children and what's happening to their environment. Only with information can citizens make decisions to positively affect their lives. We promise to live up to the spirit of the Goldman Prize, and we promise to make them proud. Thank you very much.
Recording now, this is Jane Akre. Thanks, Ruth, for inviting me. I'm sorry I couldn't be there, though. I'm covering a trial in Miami, and the timing was not going to work out, but we'll join you this way. Ruth had asked me a few questions, and if I would address those questions, and I just did want to say that I'm not working in mainstream media anymore, so take that into consideration with whatever I have to say. She asked me, what if Fox had decided to expose Monsanto's effort to kill the rBGH story? Would they have been considered heroes if they had decided to expose the influence and the attempt to censor the story? I guess it depends on who the viewer is. I would have been impressed by that, but would an advertiser be impressed by that? I don't know. And who do they pay attention to? The viewer or the advertiser? I think I know the answer to that. I think it's the latter, especially these days with media, mainstream media, especially television, being in such a sorry state. I mean, the audience is divided online. People don't watch TV news anymore. They're scrambling for every advertising dollars that they can get. So I think things are actually a little bit worse today, if not a lot worse than they were when we did the bovine growth hormone story so many years ago. Again, some people would think it would be great
that they would expose the story and expose the attempt to censor it and this and that and another, that's great for the audience, but I'm not sure the advertisers would think it's so great because it could happen to them. You know what I mean? Would they lose some advertisers but gain others? Yeah, they probably would lose some advertisers, the Monsantos of the world, but those are the big advertisers. Would they gain a smaller advertiser who wouldn't be quite so worried about covering up news? That could happen. But almost every advertiser would have some news that they might not want to be told. If you were the local car dealership, you might be afraid that the news station is going to do a story about how you roll back odometers, or you do something that's less than ethical. And they might be afraid that you might expose them. So you might lose some advertisers and might not gain some others if you do hard-hitting news. That's the way I'd be thinking if I was the general manager. And generally, general managers come from a sales background, so they think about the money. And, in a way that's okay, because you've got to fund the station, you've got to keep it running. And advertising does that. But do you sacrifice news for advertising? I think you do. I think that's done every day. And the real shame is when the reporters also decide that that's the way they should go because they want to keep their jobs. Self-censorship's one of the worst, I think. And it's not an easy solution, I'm glad I don't have to make those decisions anymore. News media is missing out on much bigger stories when they do not expose corporate attempts to silence them. Her question was, is the news media missing out on bigger stories? I think it would be, I think it would be a great story that, we wanted to tell you this story and we nailed down the story and we checked it every which way. And the subject of our story didn't have any complaints about the quality of the story, but they just didn't want us to tell us. I think that's a great story. That's a nice additional component of the story. And again, great. Yeah, the viewers might think it's great. Are the viewers paying for the station, or is the advertising paying for the station? Probably commercial media, the advertisers are paying for the station, so who's the manager of the station, who's the news director going to listen to? Unfortunately, we know the answer to that. Can editorial boards think differently? They can think differently, but it's a business. I don't think we can forget that it's a business. And the editorial boards can think anything they want about how news should be told, and the truth should prevail and nothing should stand in the way, no fear or favor, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, you got to pay the bills, you got to keep the lights on, and we don't have viewer sponsored media yet, at least not the mainstream stations. So editorial boards can think all they want, but is that going to translate to the realities of a commercial television station, which is licensed to act in the public interest? It's a huge conflict, and I don't think that editorial will win that argument, unfortunately, and the public loses. That's the end. That's my opinion anyway. Thanks.